Hello and welcome to the STS podcast. I'm your host, Iman.
And I am Mariam.
And today we have a very exciting guest joining us. Close to my heart because I'm a new mum and I've got, a little baby. And, we're always curious about sleep. And I feel like, it doesn't matter if you're a new mum or a seasoned mum, whenever you have a baby, sleep is just something that's at your forefront.
A seasoned mum.
Yeah, do you like that
I,
term?
I,
You know what I mean?
I
If
mean,
it's like,
do
if it's
I
baby number 3 or
seasoned?
4, do you know
Am
what I
I
mean?
seasoned?
Well, yeah, I feel like
I'm
sleep is,
seasoned. Okay.
you are
Yeah. Got a
seasoned.
lot of flavor.
Yeah. I feel like sleep is always something that we're always curious about, though. We're always talking about, everyone's always giving free advice. Like you hop on Instagram, there's always, try this
Yeah.
for better sleep or follow this routine. So,
Mm.
of course, we would love to bring on someone experienced in the field of sleep consulting. And I recently connected with Hala online. So, Hala, without further ado, feel free to introduce yourself a little bit to our audience.
Hi, so my name is Hala Merola. I'm a sleep consultant and I have been for 8 years now. And just like you guys said, I am a seasoned mum. My oldest is turning 12 next week, actually. And I also have a daughter who is 8 years old. So I've been doing this for a little while, but my business in sleep has been going pretty strongly for the last 8 years, so much so that I left my primary job when I was working at the Austin Hospital and just focused on this.
Wow.
I'm really committed to just helping parents along with something that I can help them with, which is sleep, because parenting is hard enough without the sleep deprivation. That much I know.
So you did sleep consulting at the Austin?
No, I was a pharmacy technician at the Austin. I was a
Oh,
pharmacy tech for 22 years prior to this.
right. That's interesting. That's a bit of a different
Massive
direction.
shift. Yeah. I
Yeah.
just I just happened to be good at sleep. I just was fine doing it for my own kids. I was fine helping my friends, and then their friends would contact me being like, "Oh, you helped our mutual friend, can you help me?" And I would. It was actually the girls at my children's childcare who pushed me to study this and actually start helping people. And I didn't think anyone would want help with this. I figured if I could just help one person a month, that would
Yeah.
be enough. Never in my wildest dreams that I think I would be this busy. So
So is it like, if you don't mind me asking, is it a qualification? Is it a
it's an
certification?
online course. It's not a
Okay.
course that is I guess, something that's like registered with APRA or
Yeah.
mandated in any way. Anyone can do the course, but really what sets you apart is whether you understand it and you're able to mold it to the people that you're working with. A lot of people can't do that. And that's why a lot of people who do the course don't actually follow through or end up succeeding in any form.
I think it requires a bit of a natural gift as well. When doing any course, really, you have to
Yeah,
be passionate about it and have a natural talent in that area.
yeah,
It's very interesting. They went from pharmacy to sleep consulting.
Yeah, and
massive.
I think I was chatting to Hala last time just about, how there are so many sleep consultants out there. There are so many online, and it can be really hard and confusing to know who's a reliable source of information and who to work with and what you can sort of trust and whatnot. But can you tell us a little bit about, what sleep training is and yes,
Nice to
sort of
start.
how your role how your role sort of evolved in that space?
Yeah, so a lot of people think sleep training is just behavior modification. And I think ultimately, initially, when it did start out, it was just behavior modification around getting a child to fall asleep independently and stay asleep independently. These days, it's more holistic, looking at the root causes as to why sleep is coming undone. So, my job is to sort of bring both
Mm.
together, looking at the root cause as to why sleep's coming undone, working on that, and then looking at behavior modification if the client that I'm working with wants that. A lot of the times, they don't, believe it or not.
Oh, well, so what do you mean by that?
As in they're just happy once they start getting into a little bit more of a rhythm of working on the holistic aspects of things, of like, working on sleep hygiene, getting onto a good routine, sort of spacing out the feeds a little bit more appropriately, making sure that the child is eating well as well as sleeping well while still being assistant. Generally they're pretty happy with that and they're fine to just stay there instead of moving on to, but I also want them to do it by themselves. So
So
that's
it's
why it's not just that.
yeah, it's more of a support thing, a
Yeah.
bit of a validation. I'm being seen, I'm being heard, someone there to reassure you know what you're doing. That's okay, yeah. A
Yeah.
lot of moms would definitely need that.
Mm.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of misconceptions about like, what sleep training is. And there's
Mm.
that view that like, sleep training is having your baby cry the whole night and not returning back to the room. And so,
Get out.
can we bust some of those myths, Hala, about, what, sleep training is? And obviously there are different methods and everyone has individual needs, but can you explore that a little bit with us?
Absolutely. A lot of the times when people think of the term sleep training, they think of the cried out method, meaning you
Yes.
pop your child to bed and you don't come back till the morning. So, say we're working on a stereotypical 7 to 7 routine, you would
Yeah.
put them to bed at 7, you'd leave them in the cot wide awake, leave the room, close the door, and don't come back till 7 o'clock in the morning. That is the stereotypical cried out. And it literally is exactly as it sounds. You're letting them cry it out. There is no reassurance at all. There's no checking in, there's no co-regulation. For me, that type of method is not one that I recommend. It sits with the, I don't know how well versed you guys are in different parenting types, but there is a parenting type called authoritarian parenting,
Yes.
which
Yes.
has really strong boundaries.
Yeah.
For me, sleep training is a very, very strong boundary. I don't want to help you go to sleep.
Yeah.
And the problem with cried out, just like authoritarian parenting, you might have a strong boundary, but your child's going to have feelings that come up with the boundaries that you hold. And cried out doesn't allow for any co-regulation or helping them through those emotions that come up, which is why for me, I won't recommend it.
Yeah.
And that's where a lot of people put fear around sleep training because they think it's just cried out. For me, sleep training is behavior modification, and we deal with it the same way we would deal with any behavior that we want to modify during the day. Just like if they're asking for a chocolate and you don't want to give them one, cry it out for me would be similar to saying no to that chocolate. And then when they tantrum, you're like, oh, good luck to you, and you walk away.
Yeah.
We don't do that these days. These days, we want a gentle parent. So when we hold a boundary like saying no to the chocolate and they're upset about that, we help them through the upset. It doesn't mean our boundary changes though. We're not going to turn around and be like, okay, take the chocolate. No, just like when people try to do sleep training and they might cry it out. And then after a certain period of crying, they come in, they're like, all right, fine, I'm just going to rock you back to sleep and feed you back to sleep. Well, then what was the point of holding a boundary? Right. And so that's what I do. I try to bridge that gap between cry it out and wait it out to where we are modifying behavior if that's what the parent wants, but working on the reasons why. So in the instance of chocolate, are we filling in all their needs that maybe chocolate isn't needed? Can we perhaps give them something other than chocolate? It's the same thing with sleep training. Can we do other things that is without being like, I'm just going to let you sleep, by yourself in your room and I'm not going to come to you. So for me, sleep training comes with in-room methods and out-of-room methods, exactly the way it sounds. If you're hands-on, you're going to be in the room with them. If you're hands-off, you're going to be out of the room with them. And when you think hands off, your mind still will go to cried out, but there isn't. There are so many other options where you can be out of the room, but still offering assistance. When you come back in, you pick them up, you hold them, you help them co-regulate, but still request that they follow through that boundary of, I'm here for you, but I don't want to help you go to sleep.
Is this from newborn stage are you talking, or are we talking about when the child is a bit older?
Older. Usually you don't start any type of behavior modification till 4 to 6 months around sleep. And that's purely because they can't. The first 3 to 4 months, you guys have probably heard of the fourth trimester. It's literally them transitioning from being inside you, womb life, to being outside in the room. So they need help through that. You can't just be like, figure it out and I'm going to get you to sleep by yourself and whatever. There are so many things naturally that are happening that they just can't. Just like catnapping. I think that's one of the questions that we thought about talking about today. Catnapping is developmentally normal. Up until about 4 or 5 months old, how can we ask a child to sleep the whole time for their nap period when catnapping is normal for that age? It's unfair. And that's when it becomes cried out and you're not attuned to your child.
It reminds me of, that, like you mentioned, authoritative parenting when your child is crying for you and like, no, don't pick him up.
That's authoritarian.
Don't pick up your child every time they cry.
So authoritarian parenting is
you'll spoil him.
Reminds me of that.
He'll get used to it. He'll get used to being held.
Yeah. So authoritarian parenting is really high boundaries but low responsiveness to their emotions. Authoritative parenting, which is the one that you just touched on, is gentle parenting. So it does still have very high boundaries, but it does have high responsiveness. Authoritative is what we want to be. That's gentle parenting. But we never ever want to just put them down and not get them used to us. Of course, they got to get used to us. We are literally their source of love. Unconditional, it's supposed to be.
Sorry, you mentioned whether it's sleeping alone or sleeping in the same room.
So
is that what do you recommend in that space? Do you recommend?
So there's two different terms that tends to get confused. There's bed sharing and co-sleeping. Bed sharing physically means you're sharing the same sleep space. So you're on the same mattress. Co-sleeping is sharing the same room. So co-sleeping is recommended up to 6-12 months where they're in the same room with you, but they are on their own sleep surface. Bed sharing is physically sleeping in the bed with you. For me, it's truly up to the parent what they want to do. I would never say they have to be in their own room. I've never, ever like I've had 3-year-olds that I've worked with that are still in the same room with their parents on their own sleep surface, just for insurance purposes. I can't have them in the same sleep surface if God forbid something happens. But it's not that I'm against it though. And it works all around the world. It's just, for me, I can't do it. But it's not that I say to go against it. So then you start looking at things like the Safe Sleep 7 to make sure that your child is as safe as they possibly can be while on the same sleep surface as you. But best scenario is that they're in the same room and on their own sleep surface, so in their own cot.
Yeah.
Hala, just to clarify, the Safe Sleep 7, where can people access that information, or do you have any
yeah, I can put that resource on my website. I could also put it in my stories, and I can even make a post about it. But it's really easy to Google and it'll come up straight away, the Safe Sleep 7. And it's just basic things that you think that we would know, but a lot of the times we accidentally don't. So like when you put a baby in your bed, you automatically put it between you and your partner. That's a no-no. Your baby needs to be on the edge of the bed, because one of you guys can roll into each other. Another thing is that they can't be under the doona with you. They have to have their own blanket or their own sleeping bag. So if they were, say, in the middle of the bed, but it's only you and your baby in the bed, your partner's not in there, they would be on top of the doona. They can't be under the doona with you. Simple things like tying up your hair, you wouldn't think. But, you know, it's been noted that strangulation unfortunately has happened from hair being out. You need to tie up your hair. It's just little things like that that you wouldn't think, that can make it dangerous. So as safe as you can possibly, like the Safe Sleep 7 is not foolproof. Unfortunately, nothing is, but it can make it better than not adhering to a lot of those things.
Yeah, and I guess it's all about risk reduction and what we can do to, you know, create the safest environment for sleep. And unfortunately, you know, people are in situations where they can do all the things, and that's the scary thing about things like SIDS, you know. Unfortunately, some children can still be impacted by these things, but, you know, doing what we can as the best we can as parents, I think, is so key. You also mentioned, Hala, that, you know, we don't engage in sort of sleep training methods before sort of that 4 to 6 months. I already know the answer to this, but can you tell our listeners sort of what developmentally, what's changing in that 4 to 6 month period as well? Because I know there's some biological changes that are happening around that time.
Absolutely. So inside our brains, there is a gland called the pineal gland. And when that matures, it can make its own melatonin. And melatonin is not just responsible for helping us sleep overnight. It's also responsible for setting our circadian rhythm. And our circadian rhythm is responsible for helping us be awake at certain times, eat at certain times. All that sort of stuff is regulated by that. And so we can't put like a strict routine. We can't do any sleep training measures at all until we've hit that marker. And usually people will think of it as the 4-month regression, where they start waking up every 1 to 2 nights, 1 to 2 hours overnight. And they think that that's just a regression and then that'll get over. It's never something that they get over. That's a permanent change in sleep. This is what tells you that their brain is matured and that they can do these sorts of things. And so it's just, they're now having sleep cycles like we do as adults. That's the only change. And that's why from that point, we can start doing things a little bit more formal. Underneath that, hold them. There is no such thing as spoiling a baby. And there's nothing that you can't fix that you've potentially gotten them used to under that age anyway.
Out of curiosity, has there been research to show or to reflect damage with the authoritarian type training where, you know, you just let them cry it out? I'd be very interested, because obviously there's been generations that have done that. Has there been any research to
There's actually been hundreds of research articles that have been made, and all of them has shown zero instance where there has been any type of long-lasting trauma. There was one study called the Middle Miss study that a lot of anti-sleep trainers like to quote and say that this, because of this, is exactly why we shouldn't be sleep training. Just a little bit of a, I guess, summary about the Middle Miss study. So the Middle Miss study took 60 babies from their caregivers, so from their parents, and left them with a nurse. And then the nurse took their bloods before the sleep training, during their sleep training, and after the sleep training to see the levels of cortisol and whether it had risen, stayed the same, or dropped. And for me, that is quite problematic. And before I tell you the results of that, it's quite problematic that the child was taken away from their caregiver. That alone is going to be raising cortisol. As well, being, you know, in such a vulnerable state around sleep, that's going to raise cortisol. Not being with your caregiver doing that, as well, using a method like Cry It Out is also going to be raising your cortisol, again, away from your caregiver. And And then also, like, the sample study size was only 60 people. It's really, really small.
And I bet
Ultimately,
it was from like 1985 or something.
yeah, and
12.
ultimately, it was inconclusive. There was no raise in cortisol, but they do like to quote that research. Whereas every other research that has done cried out or controlled crying type methods has shown that there is no instance where there's actually been long-lasting trauma. And if you think about it logically, and you guys know, like, just from standard psychology, trauma isn't a once-off instance. So if you sleep trained for one night, but then all day long you were present with your child, that's not going to determine any harm to your attachment. Even if you sleep train the next night, again, you're not neglecting them during their awake windows. So I don't see how it can be long lasting. And that's just me from the outside, but science has confirmed that as well. And there's literally hundreds of, you literally Google it, so many will come up.
Yeah. Trauma's part of a bigger picture, and it's more about the parent, the response to the situation, versus the actual incident itself. Understanding.
Yeah, that was going to sort of lead into my next question about, a lot of myths around it affecting the attachment to the caregiver.
Yeah. And really, I mean, what's going to be more impactful to attachment? A parent who is sleep deprived, who is not present with their child because they are so zoned out and they are on edge, and it's increasing the symptoms of postnatal depression or postnatal anxiety, and they are not there for their child, versus, let's just say they did cry it out. Again, I don't use cried out methods in my practice, but let's say they went to something as harsh as cry it out, and then their child starts sleeping better, and therefore they're able to sleep better and be present for their child. I feel like it is a issue when you think of the bigger aspect of things. And again, not saying that I condone it, but you do get to a point of desperation. So many of my clients have prior to working with me where they're like, no, I've done cry it out. They're fine. If it meant that they were able to get that rest so that when their child is actually supposed to be awake and they can be there for them, I feel like that is a better thing to do than to just tough it out, because there's no badge at the end of it of who was more sleep deprived, because you just end up accidentally sometimes neglecting your child.
So could you explain what that would look like then, so I can get a better image and our audience get a better image of in their head of what that controlled cry it out looks like?
So again, I don't do controlled crying either, but controlled crying is also called spaced soothing. So if anyone Googles things and they look at controlled crying type methods, or they find something called FERBA or gradual extinction, it is a collective term. Yeah, it is a collective term for the same type of sleep training where you are away from the child at intervals. So I don't know, you might be away from the child for maybe 5 minutes, and then you would come in and do a quick check. Then you're away for 10 minutes and then a quick check, and so forth.
I actually did
until they fall asleep.
2, 4, 6, 8.
I did a variation of FERBA. When we were weaning Ileana off the dummy.
Yes.
So I was but it was so tough. Like, it's really hard, like, as a parent to, like, even that was hard, like the controlled crying. I wasn't doing it like at a time, like a very strict timely basis, but it was like every few minutes, like I'd go back in, I'd try to settle, but it was so tough. And I think like you're going through so much, you're navigating so much as a parent as it is. And then you're right, like you're so sleep deprived. And then, like, for me, it was a catch-22. It's like you don't want to sleep train, but then you're not sleep trained.
What else?
You're losing your shit and you're hating your life because you're so tired and you're so emotionally dysregulated and you hate your husband and you've got rage towards anyone and everyone in your path. Like, you're feeling all these feels, and for me, it was very hard to reconcile all of that. And that's why, I think that's how I dealt with, doing like a variation of like the FERBA method, or like controlled crying when we were weaning her off the dummy. Because I was like, I need like my sanity, and I think, I was going to speak to you about this a bit later in the episode about, feeding to sleep and things like that. But you're fed so much judgment around methods that you use as well. So,
and it's done in the dark, isn't it? When you do all these sorts of things, it's done in the dark, and you're afraid to say it out loud because you're going to get one camp of toxic positivity of this is normal and you should just be loving every moment. But you're not. You're so sleep deprived. And then you've got the other camp of just let him cry it out. And it's like, how can I be in the middle? Because I don't want to do that and I don't want to do that, but I'm not coping. And that's where a good sleep consultant would come in, will help you understand the BS from both sides and be like, okay, what's going to work for you? Because a lot of the times, exactly like you said, you end up doing all these things that you never thought that you would do because there's nothing else. And you do it in the dark because you speak to one friend and they tell you this, and they speak to another friend and they tell you that. And you're like, but neither is working, or I don't want to do either. So which one is it? And a lot of the times when I speak to people, it's out of shame, and a lot of people, like, as simple as, if I give you a review, can you post it anonymously? Because I don't want people to know that I got a sleep consultant.
You get, wow, that's pretty full on.
Yeah, it's insane. But I'm glad that you guys are just open about it, because a lot of the times people won't say the things that you just said.
Yeah.
Can I ask, would there be variations depending on the type of child? So
Yeah.
is there such thing as one child is more clingy or more needy than the other?
Absolutely. Temperament plays a massive part of it. And you know it, like, just from the kids that you've seen around you guys, outside of your own, you'll have kids that are just really easygoing, and you've got kids that are just, won't sit down. And then you've got kids that are so damn loud, and that you've got kids that are just happy to do their own things and observe. Like, there are so many different temperaments that you have to make sure that what you're doing is going to fit with that child's temperament. It's easy to Google something, and look, 9 times out of 10, what you Google will probably work. But if there is a root cause for the sleep issue happening, it doesn't matter what settling method you do, even cry it out, it won't work unless you get to the root cause of it.
Yeah, because I'm just reflecting on my own children, and with my first, it was quite easy to, operate, settle, have him in his own bed. And then with my second and third, it was, especially my third, it was almost impossible. He called the shots.
Yeah.
So I was just, sounds easy. And then when you go to practice it, depending on the child, I think it would be quite difficult.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think just, I always say, how we always say, comparison is a thief of joy. Like,
yes.
You never talk about sleep with other new mums. Like, it's just one of those things that's like, it's always like haram, like it's just not allowed, you know, because, everyone's in such a different situation. And I think that can invoke a lot of feelings, even if you didn't necessarily have those feelings before, but then you speak to another mum who's like, oh, my son sleeps all through the night, or, we're waking like 20 times a day. It's I think it's really hard sort of when having the conversations about it as well.
And you know what, one person's hard might be another person's bliss. I think that's the hardest thing. Like, we can all collectively agree that waking up every 1 to 2 hours overnight is hell. But then, I've worked with clients who their baby's waking up 1 to 2 times overnight, and they're like, can you fix this? And I'm like, it's actually developmentally normal what you're going through at this age. They're still feeding, they need the feed, but they just want a sleep through. And because for them, that is just as bad as waking up every 1 to 2 hours. So I think it really depends on, I guess, where you're at, because there are other things that are going on. Because maybe your child is sleeping well and only waking up 1 to 2 times, but maybe you're not. Maybe you've got underlying P&D that's going undiagnosed because your sleeplessness is outside of what's going on with your child. There's so many factors to come in.
Yeah. And I think you mentioned, underlying causes as well. Like, that's a really important thing to consider when it comes to like allergies or reflux, or
absolutely
all of these kind of things can impact sleep as well, especially if you've got a bub who's just really generally unhappy. As well. So, having a good team around you, I think, is obviously so important.
Yeah.
And I guess leading on to what we're, this whole discussion around, this obsession with sleeping through, when someone does go through sleep training, does that guarantee that they're going to sleep through, or is sleeping through an outcome that everyone should desire, because I'm very curious about this one. Yeah.
I think a lot of the times people don't understand. They think, well, especially even when I show that a child slept from 7 to 7 without waking, they think that is sleeping through, that a 7 to 7 sleep through means no wakes.
Yes.
From the age of 4 months old, your child is always going to wake, regardless whether they've been sleep trained or not. The difference with sleep training is that they have the capabilities to do so independently. So when they do wake at the end of a sleep cycle, at the end of the 2 hours, it's just a brief wake and they put themselves back to sleep. The same thing as us adults. Like, when we sleep 7 to 8 hours overnight, we're waking at the 3-4 hour mark. We tend to put ourselves back to sleep when we have no recollection next day. Oh, she fell asleep.
I was going to say, my son's 5 and he still wakes up through the night.
Yeah, because it's normal,
just
and
the duration, I guess, that you're awake, and like you said, the independency.
And what do they need? Are they used to, having the comfort from you, and if you're willing to do it, then give it to them.
Yeah.
If you don't want to, then we teach them to do it on their own.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
Find them, able to get comforted by something else. Do they have a toy? Do they have a dummy? Whatever it is, a blanket. Like, we got to figure out what it is that they need to give them the results for both of you.
Yeah, I often think even like I reflect on how I was with my youngest, who's 5 now, and did that play a role in how much he's attached to me now because I catered to him so much. So
Yeah.
like, my third child, I was like, I'm going to do it a little bit differently. I'm not, he did co-sleep. I did pick him up every time he cried. He was breastfed for like 2.5 years.
Mhm.
And it was really, I was like, whatever you want, I'm going to let you run the show a little bit. You cry, you want me to pick you up, I'm going to pick you up. I'm going to hold. So he was always super attached, and very not independent,
Yeah.
very dependent on me. And I'm wondering if maybe, it does play in your mind every now and then, like, oh, did I cater for him too much? So now he like can't do anything on his own. Like he's 5, but I still put his shoes on. Or is it more just, I don't know, a personality thing or a need thing or a temperament thing? Or
I think
was
it's a
that kind
bit
of
of
inevitable
all of it,
anyway?
really. I think like even if you did sleep train him, it's not going to stop him being clingy. My son's
Mm.
12 and he
Okay.
still cuddles me
Okay.
every day. He still wants to hold my hand like fingers and fingers intertwined as we're walking down a shopping center. And he's like a cool kid.
Yeah.
I'm like, aren't you embarrassed? He's like, no, I love my mum.
Yeah.
He still comes in when I'm like in the toilet or in the shower, like, and he's going to be 12 next week.
Yeah.
And I sleep trained him when he was 4 weeks old, as in not sleep
Okay.
trained, but then I started setting the foundations to get to the
Mm.
point of sleep training from the age of 4 weeks old. I did the same with my daughter at 2 weeks old, and she has a very different
Okay.
temperament that he does. Like he would
Interesting.
literally
Mm.
crawl back up if he could, whereas she's very happy being independent, and I
And so
don't think that sleep
personality
training
thing.
impacted that as well.
Okay. Then
Yeah.
that's interesting to know. Yeah, yeah.
Hala, are you happy to share to some extent, you mentioned that like setting up the foundations sort of, I think you might be alluding to things like the temperature, sleep
Yes.
associations, all that sort of stuff. Could you delve into that just a little bit for our
Yeah,
audience?
absolutely. So the way that I do things with my client is in 2 phases. I think stereotypically we're supposed to do everything all at once. So you get onto a routine that same day, you're also sleep training. I think that's just way too stressful for everybody
Mm.
involved, the baby, the child, even the sleep consultant supporting you guys through it, because you're going to be messaging nonstop being like, this is the worst.
That's a good start.
Um, I think for me, setting the foundations is really, really important. So I do things in 2 phases. The first phase, look, you're an angel now. The first phase
A
for me,
halo.
it is absolutely. The first phase is the foundation. So we're going to work on temperature and clothing. That is first and foremost on everybody that they have to do it. Babies can't regulate their body temperature till they're closer to 3 years old. So if you are doing everything perfectly, but your baby's cold, they're going to wake through the night. They're going to pee through their nappy. They're going to want more milk. They're going to early rise. It's inevitable. You need to fix the temperature. The other thing that I work on is making sure that their sleep associations are working for them. So I think you mentioned that your daughter has a dummy. The dummy isn't inherently a bad thing. It just depends on what her capabilities are around the dummy, depending if you want independence or not. So if you're looking for independence and she's 5 months old and you want to sleep train her, she can't, because she can't relocate and replace the dummy herself. So it's not that the dummy is bad. It's just that her capabilities around the dummy is going to hinder the fact that you want independence. So in that case, I would say we're not looking for independence at this point. If you want to keep the dummy, let's do it later. And for now, we can still do everything else because it will improve sleep. It's just not going to completely get it where you probably want it. I'd also work on things like getting onto a good routine. And there are so many different routines that you can put your baby on. And I think the marker of finding someone good to work with is someone who understands how to find the sweet spot for your child. You can't download a program online who's going to give you a stereotypical one size fits all for everybody. And look, 8 times out of 10, it probably will fit most babies. And then there's that 2% that it doesn't fit. And does that mean that your child's broken? Or does that mean that routine doesn't work for your child? So don't, like, a lot of the times when people download stuff and they're like, oh, it didn't work. It's not that it didn't, it just didn't for you. And you just need to find something different. And most of the times when I work with clients, I work off what their baby is naturally doing. So not what routine that they're following. What is the baby naturally doing? Do they naturally sleep better in the morning? Do they naturally link cycles in the morning? Is it more in the afternoon? Do they tend to feel tired at the same time every day? Do they tend to need a certain amount of awake time before they feel tired? Does that awake time increase as the day goes on? There is a multitude of different ways to write routines. And for me, I need to look at what's going on for that child versus being like, oh, you said your child's 5 months old, here's a routine. Just follow it. It'll be fine. And it probably won't be. And even then, even if I've gone through everything and I'm so sure this is the right routine for you, sometimes inevitably, once the baby starts sleeping better, their sleep needs change. And the way that they were sleeping, in which I wrote a routine for, was because they were chronically sleep deprived. So that's why for me, I've got a 2-week support period when I have like a full-on consultation with someone, because things can change after a week because we've improved it so much. So then I'll make a tweak.
So interesting.
Yeah.
It is a lot.
That was actually one of the reasons that we ended up weaning Ileana off the dummy at 10 months. And we got a lot of judgment actually for that. They're like, she's too young. And it's like, I didn't ask your opinion about that. But we ended up weaning because I was sick of like putting the dummy back in her mouth.
Yeah.
She did so well on the dummy. Like the dummy was a lifesaver earlier on in her journey. But I think, when she got older, she just keeps spinning it out of the cot. That became a nuisance. So I think, like you said, it's so individual. It really depends on what's working for you and your family. Like I know some people with 2-year-olds, like I think that's a bit late, but I know some people with 2-3-year-olds, they could still have a dummy in there. And obviously there's physiological impacts that's going to have long term on their mouth and all. They wouldn't have to get into that today, but it all comes down to what's happening, in your household or what your needs are. I think
there's so much change, as you said, happening. So it might fit for a little bit and then it will change. And
exactly.
I just felt like as a parent, I felt like I nailed it. And then the week later, it's like, what?
Yeah, their sleep needs change.
Back to the drawing board.
Literally month by month, it changes.
I think
if you're not on top of it, everything crumbles.
Exactly. I think the most important thing, honestly, is for people to just like be curious and not to be judgmental about what, especially new parents, what new parents are doing to manage sleep in both themselves and their babies, because there's so much judgment out there. And I think that, like you said, that leaves a lot of people suffering in the dark, leaves a lot of people feeling really alone in their struggles. And it sort of impacts the decisions that you make. And sometimes you're worse off. Like I remember before I wanted to introduce the dummy, a sleep consultant that I was seeing at the time was basically like, I don't recommend this. And I was like, I get what you're saying, babes, but
if it's going to work for you in that moment,
exactly. I was like,
teaching you how to make it work for you.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think, I think everyone means well, but I think we always need to reflect on what sort of advice we give, whether that's just as a friend or professional alike, and how that serves both the person and us, when we're sort of giving that advice.
I love that you said curious as well, because you do need to get curious as to what you want, not what you think you should have at a certain age or what other 100%. People put on you as well. It's like, for me, and I'll say this with my chest, I don't mind rocking to sleep once a blue moon, but to do it every single night all through the night, I would gouge my eyes out. I can't do it. So for me, independent sleep is really important. It has nothing to do with whether they should be independently sleeping or whatever. It's just for me to be the best parent that I can be. I can't be that touched out, but the next person might absolutely love and cherish that. So who am I to say that what they're doing is wrong just because I'm not doing it? Because I'm not trying to validate what I've done as the status quo. I just need to validate it for me. This is what I need. It's okay that they want something different. So that's why I think being curious to your own needs is the most important thing.
So true. I mean, we've spoken about a lot of, different controversial topics and around settling to sleep. And I'm curious, about feeding to sleep. It's got such a negative connotation. I just fed Ileana to sleep, in this chat, put her down. So I'm still, definitely using feeding to sleep in my life, and I do find it very effective. But I'd love to know, I know that's not the case for everyone. So I'd love to know, what your professional views are around, feeding to sleep and why it's got such a negative connotation.
I think sleep consultants as a collective generally will put a negative connotation around feeding to sleep, because for a lot of babies, the way they get to sleep is the way they need to be put back to sleep when they wake at the end of a sleep cycle. So that tends to be problematic. But I can tell you, because I've been doing this for 8 years, that's not always the case. I've got babies who fed to sleep at 7 p.m., sleep all the way through to 7 a.m., even though, yes, they are waking up every 2 hours, because for them, it is not that core sleep association of this is how I need to get to sleep, because we've laid in other things, like perhaps we've given them a comforter to cuddle when they wake up throughout the night. And so then in that case, feeding to sleep is not a problem. So who am I to tell them don't feed to sleep? Because it's not a problem. It only becomes a problem if they're waking up every sleep cycle and the parent doesn't want to feed to sleep every sleep cycle. If they're happy to feed to sleep every sleep cycle, then that's fine. So that's why for me, I don't have, when I talk about sleep associations, I've never ever spoken about them as being negative or positive. I talk about them as being parent-led or child-led, and whether the parent is happy to follow through what is child-led, like the dummy needing to be replaced. Is that negative? If you don't want to get up 50,000 times, sure. But otherwise,
Yeah.
if you're fine to
But I
do it,
guess,
then do it.
yeah, and I think that's what it comes down to, is what people are happy to do. Like I've got friends that, you know, we're having to feed, you know, like you said, at every single sleep cycle. So for them, it's like breastfeeding. A lot of those people just stopped breastfeeding altogether, you know. And I think like,
And if you think of that, isn't that such an overreaction?
Mm.
Where I'll work with someone with a 10-month-old being like, I've completely stopped breastfeeding because I couldn't do it every 2 nights. Okay. Or had you spoken to someone like me, I would have put boundaries around the breastfeeding. Why do we got to stop your breastfeeding journey altogether? Because a lot of the times we set out to being like, I want to at least make 12 months. And now you've ended at 2 months because of where you're at. Versus speaking to someone like me, I can teach you that you can still breastfeed to sleep, but maybe put some boundaries. Instead of feeding every single wake, maybe we feed every second wake, and in between we maybe rock to sleep. You know? And then once your child gets used to that, maybe we can rock to sleep for 2 of those wakes, and then the third you feed. Like, you can do these things instead of blanketing, being like, stuff it, I'm not going to breastfeed anymore.
yeah,
It's
I feel
too
like
much.
as a society in general, we have such an all or nothing approach
Yeah.
to things. You know, it's either, you know, we breastfeed or we formula feed. We can't, like, there's no like, well, maybe let's do both. It's, you know, I ruined my diet, so I'm just not going to diet at all.
That's
You
so
know,
true.
I have to cry, let him cry it out, or I'm going to pick him up all the time, you know.
Yeah.
So,
And that's exactly as it is. You either become an authoritarian parent, which is stuff them, I'm not going to do anything at all, or you become so permissive that you're giving them everything. This is why it's so hard to be a gentle parent. And I'm sure you guys see stuff all the time on social media of, you know, gentle parenting is only for gentle kids. No, there's no such thing as like, all kids are the same. They're all beautiful, good kids. It's what we do that accidentally reinforces things. And being a gentle parent, being an authoritative parent, is a lot of work on the parent. And our generation, because you guys are similar age range to me, are parented by the older generation who were authoritarian. So we naturally want to go to permissive, and knowing that to be that middle ground is so hard. It's such hard work, because your children aren't going to turn around and be like, oh, thank you, mother. Thank you so much for holding that boundary. I'm going to follow it through. No, they're going to scream. They're going to cry. They're going to stamp their foot. The tantrum's going to go on for half an hour. Do you sit with them with the tantrum and let them know that their feelings are valid, but your boundary still remains? Or are you going to be like, oh, stuff it here, take whatever you're tantruming about? Or are you going to be like, shut up, and then walk away? You know, it's hard work to be that middle ground. And that's why no one does it. We are all or nothing. Stuff it. You know, you're waking up every 2 hours to feed. I'm just going to get rid of the feed altogether. It's too much the other way.
It's so interesting that you bring that up, because I think if both me and my husband reflect on how we parented, because we came from such like, my dad's very authoritative, right?
Authoritarian.
We've tried to do the complete opposite, and we've realized that actually it's backfired. So I feel like maybe my children might have that middle ground with their children.
But that's just it. You know, I definitely am a first generation cycle breaker in trying to be an authoritative, gentle parent. But in saying that, not all the time. I sometimes veer to my authoritarian roots, because that's what I'm used to. When I'm overstimulated, when I haven't looked after myself, if I didn't sleep well, I didn't eat, I haven't been, you know, keeping up with my water, work is just flooded, there's too many things that have gone outside of the variables of what I can control, I automatically veer towards authoritarian of just shut up and do what I say. And I put fear in them, which is not the right way to be, because I'm trying to be another way.
I mean, a little bit.
But it happens, you know, and I tell them all the time, because the good thing about what we do is we repair.
A little bit of fear is okay.
A little bit. Look, I'm the kind of person, like, because to be a gentle parent, I give respect to get respect, right? That's the way that I raise my kids. But sometimes I do veer off the other way. It's just my, I guess, subconscious training from the way that I've raised. But when I do that, which I do, I would say at least once a day, probably, I always repair. I'll always come back being like, that was an overreaction. I shouldn't have done that. And I fully explain it. And then I tell them, look, this is hard for me. You know, I'm very humble with my kids. This is really hard for me, coming from the way that I was raised, trying to raise you guys different. I'm not going to get it right. But the good thing is you'll get it right for your kids, or better for your kids. And then your kids will do even better for their kids.
Your man will have the perfect balance.
Oh, you know, our capacity varies so much. And I think for me that day, my capacity was just,
right.
And then that constant being needed, you know, I'm at the stage of, you know, I know you guys both have older kids, but I'm at that stage where I've got younger kids, and like just one younger chick, but inshallah, I'm going to, you know, plan on having more children. So, you know, the needingness, like being so heavily needed, for me is very exhausting and overstimulating at times. So I think that emotional regulation is just, and my husband,
and how triggering, knowing how present you are for your child in comparison to what you had as a child. Think about it.
Is that where you think it's coming from, that anger?
Oh, it is. I know so because of therapy. I've done so much therapy. That's exactly where it's coming from. Because if you think about how our parents parented us, our mums cooked and cleaned, our dads went to work. Never did they sit and play Lego with us and draw with us and take us to all these outings, just us and them. The only outings we had is when they dropped us off at somebody's house and then they left and did the grocery shopping, or left us in the car for 45 minutes while they went and, I don't know, did the tats or whatever it is that they did. It is different. We are so much more involved. Never has parenting been this hard. So of course you're going to be stretched.
That's a really good reflection, actually. You know what? I mean, I'm the youngest of 8 kids, though. So I would say that.
So you had all your older siblings helping.
I would say that the middle siblings in my family, they probably got neglected the most. I know that for a fact. Janine, if you're listening to this episode, I'm sorry about what happened to you. But yeah, I would say that they definitely had to fend for it. But even the older siblings, they were doing more caring, like for us. I would say we definitely had less one-on-one time.
They were parentified without needing to be. It's
exactly. I only started to get more of that one-on-one time as I started to get older, and as the older kids started to get married. And once everything was settling for them, then mum was like, all right, I've got so much time for you. And then, and it's so interesting because, like, we all had you all had different experiences. We get different
parents, but different
versions, different versions of our parents based on the stage of life that they're at.
And how amazing for your personality to persevere through all of that, because a lot of other children in your exact situation will be like, F my parent, I don't want to talk to him anymore. And that happens. The estrangements to parents and children right now is massive, rather than trying to understand what's actually happened.
I don't know, just on that topic, I don't know if you guys saw that story about, I don't know if this person was a licensed therapist or if she was just a coach, but that there's like a growing increase of people seeing therapists. And this particular instance was, she was made to believe that her parents that she'd been sexually assaulted as a child, but she'd never been assaulted. And she became estranged from her parents.
Through the therapist, you're saying?
Yes. I don't know if you guys have read this story.
No.
This was actually shared by a few psychologists that I'm friends with. Yeah. So anyway, because you brought that up, and I thought, I better mention that article. But in terms of this, this individualist society that we're in, which is very much a focus on me, and just how that ties into connection with family and friends and identity and all this sort of stuff. And this is actually becoming a bit of a thing in some spaces.
We have accidentally become a little bit too selfish. We put ourselves too far and forward in the front of mind. I think I was speaking about this on my socials the other week, where just in general, because I was talking about more so the epidemic of how lonely we are as mothers because the village doesn't exist, and if we are ever so lucky to make plans, how quickly those plans can change on the day because that person that morning has felt like, I'm just not really feeling it. Whereas the other person might have been looking forward to this all week or fortnight, and you just canceled on them. And that was the only thing going for them. And I think, we've lost the sense of sometimes it's okay to inconvenience ourselves for the greater good.
I mean, I reckon that's where our parents were majority of their lives. People pleasing. Like, I don't know about you, but I think that.
Don't get me wrong. I get for like massive things for sure, make it cancel. But now it's become of a, I've got a couple of chores. I'd rather just stay at home.
Oh, I'm not feeling it. So I go to the gym pretty much every morning, and
that's amazing.
There's a lady there. And it's so funny that you actually talk about this, because I had this same thought while I was at the gym. There's this lady who comes in, doesn't really know how to use the machinery. Sorry, I'm gonna expose my girls here. Sorry, girls. Sorry, gym girls. But you guys, I'm judging you. Anyway, so the group of girls I'm with, they don't want to help her out because it's going to take up too much of their time to help her out. And every time I see her, I'm like, I should go ask if she needs help. I should just show her how every time I see her, my heart is like, just go do it, Miriam, good. But then I've got this other side of me that's saying, maybe she doesn't want your help, maybe just, And I was thinking, you know what? Like, seriously, how selfish, we're just sitting there doing our own thing. We see her struggling, and okay, we don't want to spend another extra 10 minutes, going to help her out, So I was like,
but you know what, like, just, and I'm not saying this to make you feel better about your decision, but I think also, especially, we are so overexposed on social media where you see video after video, that there are times where we go help and it's not needed and it's not met with kindness. You could go up to her and be like, hey, did you want some help, like how to use this machine? And she might say, yes, please, thank you. Or she might say, F off.
Yeah.
And then that might stop you from wanting to help the next person. Like, I think because there is so much content out there and we see literally we don't know which response we're going to get.
Yeah. Which
It's
I don't
scary.
mind. I don't mind being told to F off because it's living by my values. So I don't mind. I don't mind as long as I feel good about what I've done and I've lived by my values. I'm not worried so much about other people's responses to it. So anyway, I think we're getting off topic here.
Yes,
but,
sorry.
but
We
it's
can
still
go.
a good, it's still a good topic to get into. But yes, estranged parents. I think that's where it started.
Mm.
Oh,
You
no,
know,
I had
and
a
growing
thought,
up,
but it
and
went with your gym story.
yeah, go.
Totally
So, yeah.
unnecessary gym story, but thank you.
She's just flexing that she goes every day.
I'm just flexing. Yeah.
No, but
that's
honestly,
really
you should be proud of that because it is an effort. Like, I go maybe 2 to 3 times a week. And this week I've only gone once, and I can feel the decline. Like, when you go every day, when you do something for yourself, it really, I think that for me is part of filling up my cup.
Yeah.
You know? And I think you got to
It's
find
about
something.
priorities. Let's make
Yeah.
it clear. This has been only a very new journey for me. My sons are older now. Yeah. Everyone has their stages of their life, so I understand everyone has their priorities and they can't all do it.
Yeah,
There
because
was
if
a
you think
time
of
where I
yourself
couldn't
in
do
Iman's
it.
place,
So
where right now she's 100% for her daughter, and she
Yeah.
literally does not, she's barely without being touched.
yeah.
You know, being away, like whether it's to go to the gym, whether it's to go get a coffee for yourself, you know, every morning, that is a way that you recharge. Like, it's, you know, you've finally got into that place now where you can do that. So yeah, definitely don't.
I might just cut all this out anyway at the end. So
That's
you
okay.
know, I'm not even hear about this gym story.
No, I reckon leave it in.
Choosing
Leave it
it.
in. I think, man, parenting is hard work. You know what? That's actually a thought that I had just after listening to you speak
back.
about. Speak about all of this. Just about how resilient kids are. You know,
Yeah.
and you know, you've spoken a lot about the temperament of the child and all of these things. But I know you've mentioned this a lot on your Instagram as well, is that children are resilient. Like, in terms of when we talk about settling and all of that. Like, when I first put Ileana in childcare because she's in 2 days a week, everyone used to say to me, "Well, hey, what are you going to do? Like, she's breastfed. Like, what's going to happen? Are you going to pump?" And I said, "No, they're just gonna rock her to sleep or something.
Gonna work it out.
They're gonna work it out, and we'll see what happens." And then, you know, I wasn't surprised, but you know, to my surprise, they were able to settle her in their own ways. You
They're
know,
adaptable.
Exactly.
Yeah,
whether
very
that was whether that was with rocking, whether that was with cow's milk or whatever. So, you know, when
She's
I
old enough
saw
to understand the difference between all the caregivers that she's exposed to. You know, if
Yeah.
dad's looking after her while you're doing something else and dad doesn't have magic nipples like you do, does that mean he can't get her to sleep? No, he finds a way.
Yeah. Oh well, he'll pretend and he'll act like he can't find a way, and he'll call me and be like, "Where's the tits? I need the tits." And I'm like, "Sorry, darling, I ain't coming back today."
No, figure it out. I'll be back whenever I'm back.
Yeah, but exactly, like, you know,
kids are adaptable. They're much more adaptable.
than we think. Yeah, and
100%.
I learned that so much from following Hala after I gave birth, because you know, you would mention that a lot, even about like the simple, like, now that I'm reflecting back, there's a lot that I'm remembering now, like even when we chose to unswaddle, or the transition from you know, sleeping in the
We overcomplicate it all.
sleeping in the co-sleeper and then transitioning to the cot. These are things that invoke a lot of stress as for new mums, and I'm remembering it all now as we're talking about it. And I remember Hala saying, like, you know, just do it all at once. Like, it's gonna be like, it's already like this. If you're already in the sheets, you might as well just, you know, do it all at once, and they're resilient and they'll adapt. And I remember telling other mums that I did that, and they're like, "Oh, you didn't do like one arm out, and then
Just get their hand out and then
put
their
your
arm
right
and then
foot
get it all
in,
out.
You put your right foot, then you shake it all
and
out.
it's so funny to me.
The hokey pokey. No,
It's well, the thing
I had
is,
a client 5 years ago crack it at me because I told her to do something and she was like really, really stressed about it. And I was very nonchalant. And she's like, "No, you should be on the same level as me." I'm like, "Why? I'm going to support you through it. Come on, let's do it. We're doing it." And she's like, "Oh." And then we did it and it was all fine. But she wanted me to be on that level of stress. Like, we were moving from being in the room with the
I
parents
don't
in their
think
own room.
I don't think any of our predecessors were like, "Should we take one arm out?"
No.
Should we have a community meeting about how, you know,
Right?
I think they just got on with it, you know.
Yeah.
But it's so interesting about, you know, because we're exposed to so much information and we're bombarded with what we should, what we should and shouldn't be doing, and you know, we are trying to do what we think is best. And I think we overthink so much as new parents. So I just want as a take home for all the listeners, you know, kids are resilient, babies are resilient,
They are.
and they're going to be able to cope, you know. And Yeah, I ended up just doing all of that all at the one time during that sleep regression when she hit like 4.5 months and she started losing, like she was just waking up frequently. I thought, let's just do the cot and the unswaddling all at the same time.
Yeah. And I get that question all the time, like, oh, do I have to wait till this regression's over, or do I got to wait till they finish teething? When's the regression going to be over? They're always regressing. Every time they progress with some sort of physical or mental development, the sleep is going to get regressed. So when do we fix sleep? Or, you know, when are they teething? How many teeth come out over the first 2-3 years? Do we wait till all of that's over before we try to get better sleep? And in that same instance, we're declining in the way that we can show up for our kids. No, just get it done.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. So sad.
Yeah. I'm actually just remembering now someone in my husband's family saying to me this is yeah, I know, it's always my husband's family. They don't listen to this podcast. I can say whatever I want. But watch, they're gonna end up coming for me at some point. But,
I heard you on the podcast and
I heard what you said about me, bitch. I actually remember like when Ileana was a bit younger, you know, getting asked by one of my sister-in-laws, oh, you know, is she sleeping through yet? Or like she should be sleeping through by now. And I said, look, I just remember saying, you know, like she wakes for 1 to 2 feeds. And I said, and this was me following your page, by the way. And I said, I know that that's normal, like developmentally for a breastfed baby. And she was obviously below 1, but even now she's over 1. She'll average, like on average, wake once for a feed. But just feeling normal about that, you know, like, because I feel like after your child is 1, there is an expectation that sleep is supposed to look a certain way. And even I used to get that from my mum too. Oh, she should sleep the whole night now, or she should be like this, or she should be like that. And it's like, I don't have a problem with that. And I think that's what it comes back to what you were saying earlier. If the parent is, I don't have a problem waking up one time to feed her, you know what I mean? Or to settle her, for example. Oh, sorry, I've spilt water all over myself. And I was just very passionately speaking with a full cup of water.
Oh, you used a full cup too.
Anyway, but just, yeah, I know I thought about this a bit later, but yeah, just going back to that whole, like you said, it all comes back to what the parent is comfortable doing. Yeah. And just not telling people.
I put Eamon to sleep like breastfeeding. So, and I didn't mind that. Like I actually enjoyed that, spending that time with him, putting him to sleep.
Just slow down the whole day.
So I just, with my third child though, it was like, for me, I was like, this is for you, whatever. I'm going to take myself, what's the word? Like separate myself from the world basically. And this is all you time. Whatever you want from me, I'm going to give you. And that's how I approached. So outside imports didn't faze me at all. I didn't really care. You know, I wanted to spend that time with him. I wanted to sit down and breastfeed him and prolong breastfeeding. You know, going over the 2 years, all that kind of stuff I chose to do, and I didn't mind doing it. Yeah.
And I think you'll see, like anyone who ever comes on my Instagram will see that I don't post a lot, because if you go on any sleep consultant's page, a lot of it's fear mongering.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be doing this. Your child should be doing this.
Reasons why I don't do this. Reasons why I don't do that.
Yeah.
You know.
And I just, if I post, it's to post something of substance, because it just makes sense. It's not going to be, you have to do this, otherwise you're the worst person in the whole entire world, which is what I find with a lot of sleep consultant posts, to the point where I stopped following them, because I was like, either it's full of fluff, you know, content fillers that it confuses me, and I'm the one who's supposed to be a professional in the field. And if it's confusing me, I can only imagine what it does to a parent. Or it's very much fear mongering in the sense of try to book me. And I a very long time ago decided I'm not going to be part of that game. And I'm, alhamdulillah, very consistently booked just through word of mouth, because I just cut the bullshit. I give you exactly what you need for the goals that you want, and we just get it done.
Yeah, there's so many people influence out that's how they hook people, unfortunately. Whether it's even naturopaths, wellness influencers, or that use those kind of techniques that I find very
a lot of buzzwords and
you know.
And at the end of the day, you know, new parents, moms, we're very vulnerable, and we will buy or purchase or do whatever, you know.
I spend a lot of money.
I can't tell you how much money I spent in that first like 6 to 9 months of being a new mom on shit that like I probably didn't end up using across the board for so many different things, and that we're just bombarded.
Because it comes up saying if you introduce a red light, your baby's going to sleep through. What's light got to do with sleep?
Oh my God, I bought a $90, it was the stupidest purchase I've ever done. You know, the ones you hug to sleep, the comfort ones, it's just a rag. It looks like a rag with a head, a freaking koala head on it. And it just had the white noise on it.
What about the
riff raff?
Literally just and then I lost it at the shopping center 2 weeks later.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, anything just to get $90. Like it's oh my God.
You know what I
Thinking
saw
about it
online?
now. Like it's just, yeah.
I got to tell you what I saw the other day. I'd never seen this before.
I hope you don't recommend those products before I just
I don't. I actually even my clients who have bought like a product like the Riff Raff, and they're like, oh, it's their
Riff Raff, that's what it was called. Oh my God.
I knew exactly what it was because of the price point. I tell them like, and they're like, oh, but we want to keep it. I'm like, cool, take the sound box out. We're not using that. You just got yourself a very expensive,
rag. It's a
rag,
tea towel.
literally.
It's a square tea towel.
I saw the other day there's this thing that wraps around your baby that has an electric hand that taps on their butt.
Oh, that taps them. That got sent to me by somebody. Oh my God. The stuff that's out there.
I was like, I wonder.
I think I posted it in my stories because someone sent it to me. And I'm like, what? Are we so much trying to replace the human touch?
Yeah. And
all of this comes down to the lack of village.
Yeah.
Because you wouldn't want to do all this stuff if you didn't have to do it all by yourself. Like I remember my Tata Ali at Hama used to tell me that all the like kids in the like little area that they lived in were always at her house, and she would have to make so much food to feed everyone, and that like babies would be dropped off to her and she would breastfeed them because the mom's gone out to work or whatever it is. Like that was the village. It doesn't exist anymore. That's why we want to sleep train, and that's why we want to buy all these products to remove us, like the snoo bassinet, which I hate, but anyway, it sits there and it rocks your baby the moment it feels it move or makes a sound. Like, no, you should be coming in, but you don't want to. Why? Because you're so touched out because you've done everything else. There's no break.
Trying to find things to replace the human experience. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's what we're doing. Yeah.
Well, that's I just think of AI when you guys say that too, because that's this is the era that we're living in now. And how much less can we do less,
more for less,
more for less, but I think when we're thinking about babies and children, who's impacted,
it's not replaceable as well. There's some things that you just it can't be traded off.
And then that child is categorized as being a bad kid.
Yep. 100%.
Or they're categorized with being ADHD. Like, how much increase has there been in ADHD diagnosis when really a lot of the times they're sleep deprived?
Yeah, I know you
posted a story about that the other day. It was an actual research article, not me just saying it. Like, it was an actual research article that this increase in diagnosis a lot of the times has got to do with core reasons.
Anxiety,
and then all of a sudden they're healed from ADHD. No.
Yeah, I think we put up a story about sleep disordered breathing, and that's huge for a lot of children.
Massive as well.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and I think it just goes back to we're also individual. We've all got different things, different
and
factors.
And that's why it's so important to look at sleep holistically, not just here's a routine and a settling method. Go for it. Figure out why is this child not sleeping well.
100%. And that goes across the lifespan. I know that what are your key ages that you work within, Hala?
So for me, I'll do from 4 months till 3 years old. I am qualified to work from birth till 5 years old. The reason I won't work under 4 months old is because a lot of the things that people want to fix is normal. And I don't want to take away that fourth trimester, which I think is so important because you need to figure each other out. And then I stop after 3 years old, not because I can't, and I do work with lots of 3 years old plus, but a lot of the times going back to parenting, it is behavior based. And I don't like telling parents how to parent their children because a lot of it is it's a very, very small amount that has to do with the sleep, and everything has to do with boundary holding. And a lot of parents don't want to hold the boundaries because they're either going to go to being a permissive parent or being an authoritarian parent, and to be a gentle parent in the middle it needs a lot from the parent. And I found, because I have been doing this for so long, a lot of the times parents don't want to do the work. Or they'll start doing the work and realize it's really, really hard. And one thing I tell my clients all the time, babies not only need to sleep, they want to, because the drive to sleep is so hard. Toddlers need to sleep, but they have the capacity to refuse it. Do you have the capacity to outlast them? That's what gentle parenting is, sitting with that discomfort. And a lot of parents can't do it because they've got their own unhealed inner child, and their child, tantruming for something makes them feel a certain way. And then the boundary that I've asked them to hold, which they've paid me to tell them to hold, they can't hold, and then they're not getting the results, and then who's going to get cussed out for it? Me. So I put a cut at 3 years old. But again, in saying that, I work with plenty of over that age, but usually it's my past clients coming back years later being like, this is what we got going on behavior wise, help me, because they've seen what it looks like. And the only reason I still continue to share my kids to this day, 12 and 8 years old, is to show you what the result of gentle parenting is. And when they see that, they're like, I want to continue doing what you're doing. It's hard work, but we know it's going to work, and they'll follow through, versus someone who's never held a boundary and now they've come to me with a 4.5-year-old. I don't really want to take that client on. So yeah, technically from birth to 5 years old. Professionally, I'll do 4 months to 3 years old.
Yeah.
Unless we've had a conversation and I can assess where you're at.
You're touching on so many important aspects here. I feel like we could just delve into, but
talk forever.
The whole, passing on your trauma to your child, but also, like you said, the inner child, the unhealed inner child that you have that's being triggered, and then that impacting your parenting is, you can't escape it, and it rings so true. And I see it all the time, and it's such a sad reality, to be honest. It's a really sad reality, especially for parents who have come from very traumatic backgrounds. And then you can't really blame them for how they parent or their lack of parenting. Really, it becomes a lack of parenting because they just don't know how to.
And ultimately, they're doing their best. And to be honest, like as you guys have said multiple times throughout this, children are resilient. And, even if you did everything perfect, and this is something that I had to learn through my own therapy journey, you can do everything perfect and you cannot stop your child being traumatized.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, their temperament will receive something a certain way, and that's a trauma point for them. So I think you just got to give yourself some grace and just try your best. And I think first and foremost, as long as you're trying to connect, repair, co-regulate, you'll always have a good relationship with your child, regardless whether you went hardcore into sleep training or you yelled at your kids the way your parents yelled at you. You'll still have a good relationship as long as you always try to come back.
Solid parenting advice there. I need to put that one on a plaque and put it in my house. We've got a few more questions before we wrap up for today. We've spoken a lot about, settling and feeding and also breastfeeding. There's obviously a very common myth out there that, breastfeeding versus formula, formula fed babies sleep longer. I was fed a lot of that shit myself. And, I was also fed a lot of the, if you give her formula before bed, then she'll sleep longer at night. So what can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, the only time your child will sleep better with formula is if hunger was the only reason they weren't sleeping well in the first place. Most of my babies are breastfed.
Mic drop.
Most of my babies are breastfed and they are still sleeping through the night. And just as many are formula fed and are sleeping through the night, or also waking up every 1 to 2 hours, and we end up fixing that. Going back to it, there's a root cause why your child's waking. We need to figure that out. It's very rarely just got to do with feeding. And when you are on a good routine where we're feeding them at intervals and offering top-ups and, feeding on demand throughout the day, they shouldn't wake through the night to feed because of hunger. So breast versus formula isn't going to be impactful at all.
Yeah. Do you find that when they start solids, that you're also maybe seeing, in your conversations with clients, are also seeing that, what they're fed before bed will impact sleep? Because I used to get told that as well, give her some avocado, give her some some banana before bed. It's very filling. Or, I remember actually another person in the extended family saying to give banana.
Yeah, so look, banana is a great thing before bed because one of the things that it has in it is tryptophan. Tryptophan is precursor for melatonin and it helps them sleep. It is minute. It is so tiny. It's going to do jack shit for your child's sleep. What it will do is fill up their tummy if they were a little bit hungry, and maybe that will help them sleep a little bit better. Tryptophan wise, it's not going to do anything at all. Same thing like saying eating turkey, because that's also got tryptophan in it.
Have some chicken breast, same thing.
It's not really going to do anything unless hunger was the issue. So that's why, like, eating throughout the day, the routine throughout the day is going to be the most important thing. The only time eating before bed is going to impact sleep negatively is if there's an intolerance or an allergy, or you're feeding a little bit too close to sleep and they've got something like reflux. Then fine, that'll probably impact sleep. But again, the way that I tend to space things out throughout the day, that's not really going to be an issue. So yeah, I don't think feeding's the biggest deal unless there's an intolerance or an allergy.
Yeah. No, great response, Hala. And there was actually a trend that I saw a few months ago on TikTok of giving butter to babies before bed.
I saw it.
I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah.
And
but again, if you think about it, but let's think about butter, right? Butter is a dairy. It is a source of protein. So if they were hungry, that's going to fill in the gaps and that's going to help them.
It's the fat as well. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But I just think, you know what, I'm an adult. I wouldn't have a teaspoon of butter before bed. Do you
Look,
know
I
what I
love
mean?
butter. I haven't tried it. Maybe I should.
Like I do, I love butter. Don't get me
I
wrong, I
love
love
butter
it.
so
I
much.
love it.
Yeah,
I love it.
not a teaspoon of it.
Yeah, I
Like
love it. I
that.
love it in a hot pan with some eggs and sujuk. Not
Yeah.
And on some
just
toast.
not on a
Yeah, on some
spoon.
toast, thick on toast.
Yeah, like just when we thought the butter in coffee trend was
Oh
over,
my God,
we
came
started
back
giving
with a
it to
vengeance.
babies.
Oh my
Yeah.
Yeah.
God.
So,
Yeah.
there you go. Even babies are
Carnivore
susceptible to
diet,
trends,
carnivore
unfortunately.
diet for children, for babies.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
trending a lot at the moment, but we won't get into that today
No.
because we can speak about that till the cows come home.
I actually do want to say something, Hala.
Mm.
Like I'm not in the same stage as Iman. And when she said sleep consultant, I thought this is going to be boring for me. Can I just say this was one of the most intriguing conversations that we've had a podcast on it. And it was such a pleasure. It was actually
Oh,
so engaging and I'm really learning a lot. I
yeah.
wish I probably knew it a lot, back then.
Back in the day.
But this yeah, I got to say thank you.
Oh, I love
Really,
that. Thank you for
really,
having
it
me
was
on,
so much
honestly.
more dimensional than I actually
Yeah.
expected, and so much more, what's the word? Quenching my,
Yeah.
like I'm feeling full from this
It's a little bit
conversation.
more than just a settling method
You
and a
know?
routine, huh?
Yeah. So, yeah. I feel
You're
like
gonna
we could.
sleep.
I
You're
feel
gonna
like I
sleep.
could. I'm gonna go
She's
have
gonna
a
sleep
nap
so
now.
good tonight.
Yeah, and I'm gonna go soothe
Yeah.
myself.
Yeah.
Try the
Well,
try it out method on myself.
I found like I never worked with obviously Hala professionally, but I found your content so helpful, in my journey as a new mum. So I would say that it helped me so much, especially like early on, just creating all those healthy sleep associations and the temperature of the room and all these things that I still do till now. She's 15 months and I'm like, oh, is the temperature like 21, 22? Like I'm still very much using all of
So
that.
important. Yeah.
Yeah, all of
Yeah.
that sort of free advice that, and just that no bullshit kind of approach.
I was
And
gonna
Yeah.
say no fluff. There was no fluff here. It was just
I don't have
genuine,
time for it. I just let me get you the help that you
really
need and then off you go.
practical. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
And I work a lot with our community, just in general, like the ethnic community, I should say, not just us as Arabs,
yeah.
because a lot of the time sleep training is very much an all or nothing. Like you need to be on a routine, sleeping at home in your own cot. And if you're like 5 minutes off, you've ruined the whole day.
Yeah.
I'm Lebanese. I'm not sitting at home.
Mm.
I want to nap on the go. I want to go out. I want to go on holidays. I want to stay out late at night. I want to do all these things. And I want my child to sleep well.
Yeah.
And then a lot of people think you can't have your cake and eat it too. And I'm like, I think you can.
Yeah.
I think you can if you understand sleep. So why would I fill up your brain with nonsense that's going to confuse you rather than just tell you exactly what you need to have the life that you want?
So true.
It's
Yeah.
such a holistic approach.
That's always been
Yeah.
my perspective around sleep as well, because I think like you said, this all or nothing is so easy for us to fall into. Like I've got a lot of friends with babies a similar age or younger, and I find that there's obviously everyone's got their own opinions and philosophies around this sort of stuff. So I do have friends that will they'll turn down a catch up because like I need to go home and this is sleep time. Whereas for me, because I think because of my personality, flexible, or I just want to do things when I want to do things, and I have that awareness of it would be ideal if she slept at this time, but I've got to live my life too. So it's trying to fit them into your schedule, also being aware of their needs, but being able to do both at the same time. It doesn't have to be one or the other. And I think just being flexible around that. Like they're adaptable, like we've been saying this.
And look, it's not to say that you might not spend a good week fixing everything and getting to a good space so that you can have that life. Like you can't just have the life and fix it and the child doesn't know what's going on. Give a few days where you're like really focusing on it and then go off.
Yeah.
Because that way you've set those foundations, you can move onwards. And then the rest of it is literally just holding those boundaries.
Yeah, 100%. We've had such an amazing discussion today, Hala. Just to wrap up, maybe some closing remarks. What would be like your fundamental advice for sort of any new parents around navigating sleep challenges with their baby? Obviously, they need to follow your page and book in with you. But outside of that, is there any sort of pearls of wisdom or just gems of advice you've got for any new parents?
I think my biggest advice that I give anyone is never to take advice from anyone whose life you don't want to emulate.
Yeah.
Don't look at somebody else's life who's giving you advice and you're like, but I don't like the way you talk to your child, and I don't like the way that your child behaves, and I don't think your child sleeps well, or whatever it may be. Why are you listening to their advice? Why are you letting their advice live rent free in your head, and it's ruining your experience, versus looking at someone who you're like, I love that she gets to go out with her kids all the time, and I love that they're always on holidays, and I love that her children speak to her with respect and they listen to her, but she's also listening to them. And then you look at that person, so when they offer you advice, you're going to be like, I'm listening to that one.
Yeah.
I think that more than anything will navigate a lot of the bullshit that a lot of us go through, because especially in our community, everyone, whether it's well-meaning or not, has an opinion, and it's part of conversation where, just like you said, someone will be like, how, are they sleeping through the night yet? I mean, it's none of their effing business. And what are they going to do with that information? Nothing. But it is part of the conversation of, you've got a child at a certain age, what else am I going to talk to you about? How are they sleeping? How are they eating? It is truly none of their business, but it is a conversation filler, and then you might say something, oh, she's waking up X amount of time. What else is that person supposed to do other than offer, I'm going to assume, well-meaning advice that you're going to just nod and be like, great, but I don't like the way that you parent, so I'll just shove that in the trash. In your mind, don't say it out loud. I mean, I don't know what kind of person you are to say it out loud, but and then move on. And then that way it doesn't bother you. But instead, all these conversations weigh on us. And then in the middle of the night, when our child's not sleeping, that conversation comes back and you're like, I'm just going to let them cry it out, because this is why all this stuff is done in the dark, because of all the comments and, conversations that I had in the light. And then you do it with shame and you do it wrong. And for what?
Yeah.
So yeah. Just really think about that.
What a wealth of knowledge. I just love you so much. What a top girl. Thank you so much for joining us today, Hala. For all of our listeners, we are going to share her Instagram and all her details in the show notes. But Hala, was your page Sleep Sweet Consulting?
That's
so
right.
That's where they can find you. But don't forget to like, share and subscribe and rate us. Honestly, give us 5 stars because we deserve it.
We do deserve it.
And stay tuned for our next episode in a couple of weeks with a integrative dentist.
Yay.
All right. Thank you. Yes, round of applause.